Hi everyone, welcome back to What the FinTech, your FinTech Feel Good show. What the FinTech is a news and information platform covering the latest FinTech development in Hong Kong, Singapore, China, and Asia. Join us every week for an engaging conversation with the FinTech figures to discuss about entrepreneurship, customer experience, emerging technologies, and partnerships. Before starting this interview, feel free to share this interview with your friends through WhatsApp or any social media, and also to rate us with the 5 stars if it's possible, and comment if you like this show or you would like to ask some question or recommend any speaker for the future. Today, I have a specific guest from Hong Kong. I met him a couple of times. He's working in the EKYC process. His name is Matthew from PhilEasy. Hi, Matthew. How are you today?
Good, very good. Very excited to be on the show today.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So I guess I give a brief intro about myself, the company. So I'm the CEO of PhilEasy. So what we really do is focus on making it easier for companies of all sizes to access government digital identity. So for Hong Kong and Smart, Singapore Singpass, or for UAE Pass, etc. So the problem we're really trying to solve is that a lot of companies want to use government data. Government data is the golden source of truth. You use it, you don't get in trouble with the regulators or EKYC. It makes your user onboarding journey faster and better. At the same time, for your future AI training and future model and data usage, it helps a lot as well because it provides more data, more accurate verified data for people to use. The problem we solve is that companies don't want to build it themselves because there's a lot of different regulations surrounding cybersecurity, data privacy that companies can't really solve themselves. So what you use FilEasy with the two APIs, our standard template. You can access this government data and use it to onboard your customers faster, use more verified data, and don't worry about regulation and KYC issues in the future.
We jump directly into the subject. One of the questions I ask every time is also, can you introduce yourself? So you introduce your company and what you're doing right now, but can you introduce who you are before doing your company and what you have done before?
So it's an interesting journey. So FilEasy, we started in 2021. So back in the time, I was studying my master of FinTech. So before that, I was working in audit and insurance, did a master of FinTech. And during the middle of my course, we started this company. So the original idea was form filling.
So where were your master done? In Hong Kong?
Hong Kong, HKUSD.
Okay.
So I graduated in 2021. And during the masters, we started a company as well. And really, the company originally started as a website where you could help fill in all your forms.
Mhm.
So the idea being is that, let's say you change your address tomorrow, you have 8 to 9 different companies, you have to fill in forms for all of them. So we centralize all these forms, you fill it in once, and it automatically sends to all the different companies you have. The problem we did as we were building this model out was that, number one, customers don't trust our data, or don't trust us, sorry, in the sense that a random startup collecting personal data, they won't feel comfortable. The second problem we found was that companies won't trust the data itself because it's very easy to impersonate this data, send it out. If the company processes this impersonated data, fraud data, then there's a lot of regulatory issues that might happen. So what really is why we came to digital identity and I'm Smart and all these government systems is we thought if we integrated this solution, it could solve the issues on both sides since users trust us because we're affiliated with the government using government data, and companies can trust the data because it comes from the government. And after integrating this once, we found out, wow, it's really difficult to integrate. So why not help companies do it? And that's really how we started up on this journey for government digital identity integration. And that was really in around 2022, March. We started working on it. And we had the first MVP by around last year this time, actually.
So you mentioned how you start your company.
Yep.
The first steps. I do remember also that you integrate with like I Am Smart here in Hong Kong, so the digital identity for government.
Yep.
Is this still the case? Did you develop more solution based on this?
So sorry, can you clarify the question? Is it just
about I Am Smart?
Yep.
So I remember you work with that integration of I Am Smart for the identity. So it's something you have developed first in Hong Kong or one of the first products, right?
It's our first and currently only product right now.
Okay. It's okay.
But right now we also support like Singpass in Singapore, UAE Pass as well. In a few months' time, there'll be the GBA 粤省市. So it's the Chinese version, GBA version of iSmart, and also Macau has an iSmart called 一户通. And likewise in the countries across ASEAN. So if you go to Thailand, there's NDID. You go to India, there's Aadhaar, one of the biggest digital ID projects ever. Malaysia, Indonesia are all releasing it this year. Japan has my number, Mano. And so every government around the world has these EIDs as well. And they all face similar issues in the sense that it's very difficult to integrate this system. And for companies around the world, they don't want to spend all their time and effort building out this system when you can have a standard template like ours.
So how do you do it?
Oh man, this will take probably an hour to explain.
It's okay. We have all the time.
Yeah. So in the essence of what we do is there's a lot of okay. So I think we'll start from a very high level. So in the sense, there's I guess four key pieces to how the startup works. So number one is that you have to have the regulatory acumen,
Mhm.
and so you understand the data, the privacy, the cybersecurity surrounding the system. You got to have the technical expertise to actually build that system per spec. The political know-how to convince governments and talk to regulators so that you can understand the concerns and help push policy agenda. And finally, you have to figure out how to sell it. Because I'm sure for all the people listening to this podcast, you probably know how difficult it is to sell to a bank, to a FI, especially for a system like ours where we hit PII, the most sensitive data, and where if you have mistakes, there's a very big regulatory impact. So really, the system was that's why we had to spend around a year to research how to build the system. I had to consult for some AWS about system design. So we work with AWS very closely to build our system design. And likewise, we have a third-party auditor, PwC, looking and vetting our systems to make sure it's built per spec, fulfilling all these different requirements. So in practice, how it works right now is that let's say an FI wants to onboard with us. We have an isolated user account, fully black boxed, meaning we can't even access the inside of that system and that only they have that access to that AWS account
Mhm.
through a specified domain. So they have their own domain, own account, own cloud resources. Data flows in, data flows out, nothing stored in between. And it's only deployed, or the only way we can access it is through change management, meaning that no one can touch the data inside. And that was the minimum requirement we had to build to ensure that we fulfill the FI requirements in terms of like SA2, third party onboarding, third party vendors. And really, it's the fact that we can meet that requirement, which enabled us to start talking to the FIs and really sit down and start doing the integration process, especially for a system like ours.
So, how did you work with your first customer? Did you find it quickly? Is it a financial institution? Did you had to work with any like a kind of auto industry as well?
Oh man, the first customer. That's a journey. Well, I guess it's time for story time. So the first time I talked to a customer was in August last year. So that was when we were first figuring out what to do. The product wasn't ready. It was just really getting traction, getting customer feedback. So me last year in August. So our first customer was HSBC to have a call with one of their senior managers, right? And we're just trying to pitch our product. It was an introduction from Hong Kong Singpass, and it went quite badly because I was like playing around. I didn't really know what I was doing in the sense that I didn't understand the concerns. I didn't understand the regulatory requirements. I didn't understand the, I guess, the standard of what it takes to sell to a bank. And so, really, what it meant was that he was very polite, very nice, but you could tell that we just weren't ready. And each step time we talked to the customer, we got a bit further. So, for example, the next one was with another bank as well. We got to the second round, technical assessment, and we died there because we didn't know the requirements of a bank, especially around SA2, cybersecurity, about uh, system requirements. And then over time, I think by a year later, when the product was very finalized in our V2 version, built based on all our customer feedback, all the requirements, and also from comments from our auditors and comments from AWS, we finally built a product that was ready to launch
Mhm.
in the sense that it met all those regulatory requirements, meaning no data mixing, full isolation, full cybersecurity scanning, uh, 99.99% uptime, fully encrypted end to end, built to the best practices, and fully compatible for every EID around the world. And only then was that product ready to sell to banks. And that's why these banks and FIs are starting to talk to us again. So, both not only because the market is ready for this kind of solution, but also at the same time, we're ready in the sense that our team, our systems, our processes are in place, and we know what they want.
So you learn it the hard way.
The hardest way there is.
And this is really an entrepreneurial journey. So you face a lot of difficulties, obstacles there. You could, fight back and develop your way to collaborate with them, improve your workflow, your workforce, your process answers as well.
Yeah.
Um, any lessons you got from there?
Well, I think for me, the key lessons is really I mean, there's lots of ways to learn. For me personally, the way I learned best was just by doing. So by trying to build the product, by hitting my head against the wall, right?
Hmm.
There are certain shortcuts you could I won't say shortcuts, but other ways you could do it. For example, a lot of startups I work with or I talk to, they rely a lot on mentors or rely a lot on, for example, existing expertise. So some of the best startups I know are like 10, 20 years in the industry. I came out, I know the requirements, I built the product to meet those requirements. Then that's another way to do it because you already have that existing knowledge. Or if you have a very good partner or mentor, you can also provide that insight and expertise. For me, or at least because I'm a sole founder as well, I had to do it the most hardest way there is. And especially with this new field, I'm Smart's only released in 2021. No one really knows how the system could work, right? And it's down to, I guess, me as an individual, as an entrepreneur, to figure out all these things myself. And so, yeah, for the last 2 years, I spent a lot of the time reading the regulation, reading best practices for IT, cloud system development, how to manage your employees, how to sell to customers, and how to meet the requirements for not only, for example, finance, which is one of our core markets, but also, for example, government projects, for healthcare, for real estate. There are local requirements as well for regulation. And really, when clients ask me, "Oh, do you fulfill X?" Yes, we do. Does iSmart fulfill Y? Yes, it does. And for example, one of the key insights we got was, for example, Iron Smart. If you use Iron Smart to onboard a customer for SSV entity, it waives the $10,000 deposit requirement. A lot of SSC entities don't know this, but once I mentioned it to them, they go like, "Oh my god, this is amazing." It means that for a client to onboard, it's not a week, it's not even a day, it's not a week anymore. It's within 10 minutes, or the moment they click submit, you can onboard them already, and they can start trading immediately. And that's a really good key selling point.
So you mentioned about your first customer, and I'm sure you spoke
Yeah.
with other customer after, and you mentioned it just before. So how was it the journey for you to find other customer, work with them, start to work on the preparation, and
Hmm.
integrate your system with them?
So in terms of like the customer journey, usually what happens usually is like we find customers in one or two ways. So one is they have a known demand for I'm Smart or digital ID integration. So
Mhm.
that is known demand. And they know us because we're one of the top guys in the industry to doing so, or at least right now, probably the only guys who deliver it as a SaaS. So deliver I'm Smart integration or EID integration as a SaaS. Most of them do it in a traditional system integration method. So like a fixed contract. So they have this known demand, they find us. And after that, they find that we could do what we say, we give the best value proposition to them, meet their needs, meet their regulatory needs as well. And it means that from there we can close quite quickly. The second case is for customers who want to learn more about IamSmart. Since IamSmart digital IDs is quite a new phenomenon, a lot of companies and clients don't really know what it is. And we spend uh, probably the first 1 or 2 meetings really talking more about why this helps them in terms of reducing client onboarding time by 80%, in terms of regulatory compliance, and in terms of also future proofing. Because the way we see it is that within 5 to 10 years, every company will be forced to adopt, whether they not like it or not, because customers might want it, and also regulators will punish those who don't do it.
I also use I am Smart for booking my football pitch when I play with my football team. Football. So I'm using a smart play right
Yeah.
now. Pretty good. You mentioned also that you are working not only in Hong Kong
Yeah.
but with SingPass and few other passes. Was it very difficult for you to integrate this digital identity into your system? Did you have to rebuild everything from scratch, or you could duplicate what you have done already?
So over the last year of building out the EID and build out this system, a lot of work we put was really future proofing the system itself to make it scale better in the future. And that was from advice from AWS and our internal expertise as well, because we know how to build these systems well. And what happened was that when we integrate SingPass UAE Pass, the system is quite easy to accommodate, meaning the initial architecture we built can scale to any EID. So later on, when we're moving on to the Chinese I'm Smart or my number in Japan or Adhar, that system can accommodate and still fulfill all those requirements. That means whether we have a client in Singapore, so we can localize the server to Singapore, and through that Singapore server, we can create a new user account that's black boxed for the client to access. Sorry, the client to transmit data through it, meaning that over meaning that by the end of the day or in a few years' time, for any EID around the world, we can support it immediately as long as we build the application layer out. And really, that system is quite future proof, and it's only going to get smoother and better each time.
Good, good. So your company is like 2 years and a half old. You're based here in Hong Kong STP.
Yep.
You are part of the ecosystem for
Yeah.
a long time. How do you see the industry evolving here in Hong Kong and the trend?
So the industry right now, I would say, in terms of Hong Kong, I guess from client feedback and client discussions, regulators and companies are more willing to try. So a year ago, I was trying to sell Smart. there wasn't that pressing urge. But right now, the winds are blowing the favor in terms of like customers demanding it, and companies are also forced to adopt. And especially with new regulation as well from GBA, from GBA regulation and Hong Kong regulation, is making a more favorable environment for digital identity and eKYC.
Mhm.
So to give an example, just last week, GBA, the Guangdong government announced that they will recognize I'm Smart and Yap Wu Tong, so the Macau EID, and Hong Kong's ready to do so next year. So what it means is that in the future, by this time next year, a Guangdong resident can onboard with a Hong Kong bank without coming to Hong Kong using their own national EID, own provisional EID. And it means that's the future of cross-border finance and is powered through an opening regulation. And next year, we also have a policy proposal. I'm working with Raphael and FinTech Association to get HKMA to recognize other countries' EID.
Mhm.
So it's one of the policy proposals they're pushing through this time next year in 2024, meaning that let's say a Singaporean resident using Singpass can open a bank in Hong Kong without coming to Hong Kong.
You look very excited about this.
Oh, I'm very excited
Why are you so excited about it?
because it's very rare I can talk about this. Most people get bored about regulation and EID, so I usually don't talk about these things. It's not exactly the most interesting topic for a lot of people. But
It's still necessary, right? Everyone's need to do onboarding for any platforms when they need to, I don't know, register for bank account, as you
yeah,
mentioned, or for other things. So
no, because I think like really the directions right now, I'm very excited about the June regulation in 2023. So I read SFC, HKMA, IA, MPFA, AMLO for all the other EAA, Law Society, Accounting Society. I read all the regulation for AMLO. And all of them came up with the same way of how they recognize digital identity systems. So the exact wording is a digital identification system recognized by the RA, so relevant authority. And it means that it's just a list that they have to add EIDs on it. And right now, when I talk to Raphael and talk to the other policymakers, the initial thought was to add Macau, Tong, and we're just on that list because it means that through cross recognition of these EIDs, it really makes it a lot easier to do business. So whether you're applying for government services, so you mentioned for your leisure link about basketball court, use your Smart to do it in Guangdong, amazing. And you can also open a bank account in Guangzhou without going to Guangzhou, open a company, sign documents, everything's legal, valid, approved. So it's a very exciting place. And the point being, when I talk to Rafi, it's like, why stop there, right? Why don't make Hong Kong the leader when it comes to digital identity? Meaning that a resident from anywhere around the world can do business in Hong Kong without coming to Hong Kong. So you can imagine one day a Malaysian resident goes like, I want to use that Hong Kong crypto exchange. I don't have to fly to Hong Kong to open a bank account here. I can do it on my phone.
mhm.
It's recognized by SFC. It's legal. It means that any cross-border trade, cross-border finance immediately gets 10 times easier because you don't have to worry about the regulation. You know it's approved. And it also means that Hong Kong de facto is the place to do business because it's the only place that cross-recognizes all these EIDs.
Just before we start the interview, I was
Yeah,
speaking about like largest KYC platforms with
yeah,
you, such as Onfido or Jumio
yeah,
or Dion. You are born, the company is born here, the solution is born here
yeah,
in Hong Kong. But some of the virtual banks, some of the crypto exchange, you mentioned them,
yeah,
are using those solutions from overseas.
yeah.
How do you compete with them? What is your value proposition here? What makes you different?
Well, I mean, quite honestly, the way we approach the problem is that who is the guarantor of the data validity? So where's the source of that data, right? So right now, for most solutions, when we say on right now for traditional like KYC processes, right? There's like three approaches. One is like through alternative identity provider like WorldCoin, those Web3 digital identities, stuff like that. Number two is the OCR approach. So scan your face, scan your ID, liveness check, very commonly found solutions. And number three is the most traditional manual process. So usually it's one of these three, and there's various trade-offs. So if you use WorldCoin and the Web3 guys, they're the most convenient, but they're most likely to go wrong in terms of regulation. For facial scan OCR, they're middle of the pack. So it's 50-50 between user experience and regulatory approval. So it means that for users, it's a bit annoying, 10 minutes to scan your face, scan your ID. And for the regulators, most of the time, 98% of the time, it doesn't go wrong. So it's like the middle of the pack. And finally, for the manual process, it definitely will go wrong, but it's very annoying for the customer. So usually there's a trade-off between these three solutions. The way we see it is digital identity, like SingPass and Smart, is superior in both ways. So it's convenient for the user. So let's say it's as fast as Facebook login. So you click a button, click OK, data gets sent across. You don't fill any forms. You sign online with your EID. Super convenient. It means that there's no way it's a lot better than facial scan ID scan. 80% reduction in time, 20% increase in customer onboarding success rate because of the lower friction. And for some approvals, 100% reduction in approval time, meaning you can approve immediately.
Mhm.
At the same time, for the regulators as well, for every regulator, at least in Hong Kong and even in Singapore, they only explicitly approve I'm Smart or Singpass. So the regulator has said, if you use I'm Smart, if you use Singpass, we won't fault you if KYC fraud occurs, meaning you're free from KYC issues.
Mhm.
And so that means the way we see the way forward is just a matter of time because every bank will see the clear advantages of using the solution. And the question being is then who's the guy to integrate these solutions for the bank? The bank could build it themselves or they could find a vendor. Most tend to go for vendors. And if the vendor right now, then we're the guys to be that vendor.
We mentioned about digital identities in the beginning. Obviously, you help a lot for onboarding for consumers,
Yeah.
unique consumer like you and me for like bank accounts.
Yeah.
But do you also help for corporate to do the identity of the directors? And after this, my other question will be, I'm sorry, I'm asking two questions at the same time. Do you do it also for private banking or like investors?
Oh, definitely. So right now, it really depends on what data the government releases. So governments tend to release in phases. Singapore right now is going the fastest. So my info has a wide range of data. So both for individuals and businesses. So if they focus on my info business, it means that through an API, through a click of a button, a business can share, for example, their statutory records. So their NA1s, their CR, their BRs, their directors, list of directors, their annual tax returns, existing government grants and projects. So a lot of the fundamental documents regarding a business can be shared online digitally already. And then and right now Hong Kong's doing it by next year. To my knowledge, China already has it, but each country around the world is also going the same route in the sense that they want to make company registry data open and accessible through government apps. And hopefully banks and companies will want to adopt it because it's again no more KYB fraud. For private investors, likewise, usually the way it approaches is there are some we infer from tax returns, but in terms of, for example, a list of directors to the partnerships, or sorry, list of companies that they're directors of, right now there's roads being made to do so, but right now it's not fully there yet. The focus really was for retail and businesses first, and then potentially, for example, high net worth. But right now for high net worth, the main thing that digital ID adds value to is for digital signing. So execution of documents done online, meaning that for your advisors, they don't have to visit the investor in person. They don't have to be in person to do KYC or execute various documents. Just sign it online.
I'm sorry if I missed this part when you explain everything you are doing,
Yeah.
but are you also involved on Open API here or Open API in Singapore, for example?
We're making inroads to working on it. One of the projects that we wanted to also work on was making Open API easier to work with. So at least I'm more familiar with the Hong Kong market. So I know for TSPs, third party service providers, the key challenge is that if you want to use a bank's API, you have to do risk assessment for every single bank in Hong Kong, and each bank has slightly variation of the APIs, making it, I would say, difficult to work with, to be politically correct. So one of the projects that we're also interested in working in is really making it easier to work with those open APIs. So for example, almost like an exchange or a clearinghouse. So a client onboards with me, I'm already vetted for the banks, then banks can offload their fraud risk to me, and I provide a standardized set of APIs for the for TSPs to access. So really that's one of the projects we want to do. But but it's one of those things that if I have more resources, more time, we will also look into. But I know right now, in terms of UK, the leader of open banking, the approach was like a regulatory-driven approach. So regulators do KYB. Sorry, so the regulators guarantee that the TSPs don't do fraud. It doesn't really make sense for each bank to do their own TSP analysis. In my opinion, it should be something that the regulator should have done.
Mhm.
But I guess it's just different practices across countries.
Yeah, definitely. I think some countries are more like the responsibilities on their platforms and they will invest time, money, and people.
Hmm.
And for other country, we can see like they are more like this should be the responsibility directly of the key stakeholders or actors on the market, such as a bank, insurance,
Yeah.
or other companies.
Yeah.
Definitely, it's a ongoing discussion and a long debate.
Yeah.
So when we start this discussion, you say your only product is I am smart here.
Yeah.
Do you plan to develop extra features based on I am smart, or do you plan to develop any specific product you would like to release in the couple of next months, for example?
So for us, the key things we're driving towards is going deeper into Iron Smart
Mm-hmm.
and going wider across EIDs. So we're talking about right now we support Singpass and UE Pass as well. Then we also want to support the other EIDs because this model and this market is replicable. Companies around the world needs this solution to be able to integrate quickly because they want to use their local domestic EIDs and also authenticate customers overseas. So that's the way we're approaching it. And for some of Smart, we've touched on KYC, but actually there's a lot of other features that exist that very few people know about. For example, digital signing. So right now in iSmart Signature, it's the only digital signature available to consumers that's easy to use, meaning that consumers can sign various documents, statutory documents online. Let's say one day you sign your mortgage online in Hong Kong, right? Adobe or DocuSign, there might be challenges in terms of how do you validate the person actually signed. With I'm Smart, courts will 100% recognize, meaning that if you sign using I'm Smart online, it's the only one that really meets that regulatory threshold or safety threshold for banks and FIs to adopt and facilitate online signatures. And likewise in Singapore, SingPass, also SingPass signing, use your SingPass app to sign a loan agreement, shareholding agreement, open a company. That signature is the only one that really reaches that grade. And likewise for UAE, there's UAE sign.
Mm-hmm.
For at heart, there's at heart e-sign as well. So it's kind of like the fundamental technologies that enable online transactions. And for us, the bet we're making is that, well, people need to use GovTech. Who's going to be the ones making it easier to use GovTech?
You mentioned also, okay, I have a question. You mentioned also about like service design at the very beginning of this
Yeah.
interview. So when you develop your solutions, do you do like some customer experience? How do you develop your product? Do you do like some prototype? Do you do some design iterations? Do you get feedbacks from partners? Do you get feedbacks from testers? Anything?
Mm, for us, the way we designed it is just basically make it so easy to use, even a monkey could use it. And that's the metric we kind of hit for the APS. So like the Stripe model, like Stripe back in the day, MasterCard, Visa card, very hard to integrate. They made it so it's like one API, one solution you can plug and play, right? And that's the goal of our APIs. So let's say you want to integrate with Smart. There's around 27 different steps to log in. Plus, you also have to fulfill a cybersecurity audit, PIA audit. You have to have a 24-hour rotating CKKK. Then we simplified it so that right now it's just two APIs. One to initialize the request, one to get the data. Like it's easy enough that okay, maybe not a monkey, but a university student could probably realistically build the access.
You should say a kid.
Yeah.
I try every time on this interview also to give like some 5 minutes or 10 minutes to an entrepreneur to
Yeah.
explain where they want to go,
Yeah.
to take the lead of this interview.
Yeah.
There is any question I didn't ask and you would like to cover, or any specific topic you would like to discuss right now that we didn't cover until now?
Not really. I think we can keep going on. I think it's on the right track or like things that I'm very interested about.
So what are you very interesting about?
Well, for me, at least for our startup, I think it's a very exciting world, because the way we see it is like right now, fundamentally, what we're building is things that will be used in 5 to 10 years' time or maybe 20 years down the road, right? In the sense that it's almost like building like a road, right?
Mhm.
Or digital infrastructure. So it's like if you can imagine like the early days of Stripe, you go like, oh my God, this kind of thing is something that people really want, people really need. And it's lasting in the sense that it's not something that you can easily or how to say it's a defendable market and it's a hard enough market to keep it interesting. So right now, for example, even just today, right, we're solving extremely complex technical issues, right? How to simplify the SingPass signing APIs so that a potential user can integrate very quickly while at the same time fulfilling all the cybersecurity regulatory requirements as well. So the entire system is unbelievably complex in the sense that there's so many different moving parts and but at the same time it makes it fun because it pushes the team to it's almost like playing the Olympics. The highest technical standards, you don't get harder than multiple PII data transiting through your system through black boxes through automated deployment. to also the hardest sales there is, in the sense that finance, breaking into finance, gov sales, some of the hardest sales there is. So it's like almost like playing at the hardest difficulty, so it keeps it interesting and fun. At the same time, if it does work out, since you never know with a startup, then you build something that can last, in the sense that it's not just a transition, a phase, right?
Mhm.
So for example, we went through like crypto, AI, hype cycles, but these are things to last, because it's the only thing that banks and consumers and you and governments will make sure lasts over a period of time.
So you mentioned about crypto, you mentioned about AI. Before this interview, when you came here,
Yeah.
we spoke about Gen AI.
Yeah.
So, quick question: how do you continue to innovate as an entrepreneur and as a startup? And do you sometimes leverage on new technology like Gen AI? Because everyone is looking for Gen AI to solve a couple of like manual tasks, back office report, creating some reports about like we discussed about it, the document you receive, the
Yeah.
document you're missing. Do you use the software as well sometimes to involve your solutions?
Oh, definitely. So a lot of like recently, I used Gen AI to write a government tender, and we
Mhm.
won the tender. So it's one of the. I would say it helps a lot with tedious task.
Mhm.
So, but if you want to innovate, if you want to imagine something new, Gen AI might not be the best tool to do so, because it's just a rehash of existing thoughts, right? So if you, for example, you type Gen AI for good business ideas or good startup ideas, you might just get rehashes of existing ideas, which isn't really true innovation. I would say that true innovation or true design takes a lot of time, effort to understand industry. So that's why, for a reason why a year ago I started to do that well, because I was just, our team and me just wasn't ready. We didn't know the industry well enough. We didn't know the requirements well enough, and we just didn't have that crucial insight.
Mhm.
And now, after another year down the road, getting that crucial insight, getting that key understanding, then it becomes meaningful.
Um, I didn't speak too much about your company.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like not company, your team. How many people are working with you? Are they all based here in Singapore, in Hong Kong, sorry, or do you have also people based in Singapore? And also, how do you do to recruit your teammates and colleagues?
Oh, that's another story in itself. So, right now we have 8 total employees, and most of them are based in Hong Kong, and we have some like fractional CFOs and CSO, so who also help us as well on some high level strategic decisions like fundraising or overall strategy. So my first employee was Rowena. So 2 years ago, when before HASDP, we were still on the original idea of one website to fill in your forms. She was my first designer, UI UX designer, to help us get into science part, because you need 2 full-time employees. Before that, I had a team of 6 co-founders, but then we split ways amicably because they want to focus on careers.
Mhm.
So after a while, I was just a sole founder, and then the first employee was Rowena. And then and then by the time in March last year, my first full-time employee, Eric. So he's still with us as well, lead developer. After that was sales and marketing, Juniper. Sorry, business software engineer, Juniper. And then later on was UA, a project manager. Uh, and so how I found this, and right now we have 8 people. So some of them were sourced from overseas, ING. So the funny story that my parents and me say is like I'm the only Hong Kong guy in my company, because all of them are all international talent. So we have Russian Vladimir, who joined us, very very smart programmer. A Berlin Ethiopian mixed AWS developer who came over here on a visa to work directly with us. I actually live with him right now. We have one mainland student, two Malaysians, and the only Hong Kongers are fractional CFO and CSO. And in terms of this talent, well, I guess in a sense, to be very honest, I was just lucky. It's very rare that you find that good of a team
Mhm.
with that diverse a background, and a sense that, well, if for them, I would say they're punching very high above their weight. So, for example, Eric is a fresh grad, handling the entire PwC audit right now, and he's handling a government project by himself. So he's only like 22, 23 years old, handling the entire government project himself.
Very good.
For example, my cloud developer, 24, he's talking to like 40-year-old cloud architects from AWS and doing design. and they meet that standard. So they literally had no further comments, no challenges around design. For example, Vladimir, he's around my age as well. He handled the entire design for Singpass by himself. And yeah, it's a complex system. There's like a lot of different keys, cybersecurity, and cyber handled all by himself. And yeah, and I was very lucky to meet all of them. And at the same time, I think they're also lucky that they met me as well, in the sense that they could also join this journey as well.
You look very passionate about your team. Do you have any how can I say that? Do you? I try to find the right wording, but how do you create the culture of your company? What do you do to have a nice environment there and stay engaged with them?
Am I allowed to swear in this show?
You can do everything you want.
Well, I mean, put it this way, I'm a chill guy, but I'm an asshole about work.
Okay.
So in the sense that I don't compromise on standards, right?
Mhm.
In the sense that I guess I wouldn't like to use the word nice, because every day I would say if it's a nice environment, you're not really doing much.
Mhm.
Because if you don't have pressure of timelines, of deadlines, of expectations, then it's a recipe for disaster. In the sense that, well, we're building those kind of systems that you cannot ever be wrong. You get hacked once, you leak data once, you do one bad patch, you die. So it's literally a nice edge system. Then it requires someone to be a dickhead about it, right?
Okay.
And I'm the dickhead in the room. But it's a fair game in the sense I'm loose about everything but the system.
Mhm.
And that's the game we play. And they also respect that, it's one of those environments that you're forced to grow and evolve very fast. And you're exposed to a lot of different things. So, for these talents like this, they'll never ever get to sit in that room until maybe they're like 30 or 40 years old. So you can accelerate their career development to get exposed to a lot of different things at a very young age.
Mhm.
But at the same time, they have to hit those standards. And for a certain type of person, at least for my team, I think they find it extremely interesting, because it means that, you're a fresh grad, you're working directly with the banks, they treat you as an equal, you're the lead on that project, but you have to meet those standards, and I make sure they meet those standards.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, I don't have like so much more questions, so we
Yeah.
are very close to the questions
Yeah.
of the end of this interview.
Yeah.
Um, the discussion was very like chill,
Yeah.
friendly, very nice. Do you have like any piece of advice for anyone listening to this podcast or watching this video?
I don't know, because for me, when we talk about startups, I don't know. Well, this is a lot of advice, a lot of different things. I think sometimes it doesn't really work well because every startup's different.
Mhm.
I mean, there are certain principles that you have to adhere to, but in terms of particular advice, it's very situational. But in sense of like what usually makes a good startup is that, well, the founding team has to have some kind of magic about them, right? And there are certain things that, like you have to have product market fit. You have to figure out what customers want, right? And sometimes the way I describe it, especially since my mom is also runs a business. So my mom, for example, she runs a artwork consulting business.
Mhm.
So she works for like MTR, others to build sculptures. If you walk in Apergy Station, the big hanging sculpture is something that my mom built,
Mhm.
her company built. So, and I learned a lot from her in the sense of like the core principles of what it takes to run a business. And there's a sort of elements or certain things that when you talk to entrepreneurs, especially SMEs, you realize the founders have a certain kind of personality. They have a big personality, not in an obnoxious way, but like they're not timid. And at the same time, they're also have a certain magic to them. I don't know how to describe it sometimes. The way I will say it's like you know how to salsa, you know how to dance.
Mhm.
Because entrepreneurship just punches, throws right hooks, left hooks all the time.
Mhm.
You don't know what's gonna hit you. You gotta dance.
I like this image. It's
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah.
Do you have any I would say podcasts, blog, articles, books that you recommend to anyone jumping into your space or the fintech entrepreneurship?
Mm, for fintech entrepreneurship, I think
Or anything you like?
for me, I used to watch a lot of Y Combinator.
Okay.
So I think some of their underlying principles and things they think about is quite interesting. So in the sense that there's a lot of ways to think about your business that is very useful,
Mhm.
because a lot of times when you do business, you're not very objective, especially with yourself. Just like, oh, if I worked a bit harder, if I tried a bit hard, if I had a bit more money, that it could work out.
Mhm.
But then is one of those things that really helps you think about your business in a fair light and know when you should keep going, when you should stop, avoid the certain pitfalls that really kill you. And I think for a lot of, I guess, new founders, one of the best podcasts to read about is like how to come up with good business ideas. So I think it's from my commentator, so I can't remember the exact name,
Okay.
but more in the sense of like figuring out idea matter. I mean, like execution is obviously more important than ideas. You can make a lot of money running a McDonald's restaurant, but if you want to be like a startup, right? Then if you chose the wrong market, chose the wrong idea, then you could be doomed from the start.
Mhm. Got it. Got it. Good one. Y Combinator come back often here as well.
Yeah.
So other entrepreneurs mention this.
Mm.
And the last question is like where people can learn about you, about the company, how they can
Mm.
reach out to you, how they can have a trial or get a meeting with you as well.
Also, you can find me on LinkedIn. Just search Matthew Digital Lee, search PhilEasy Limited. Or if you search I Am Smart, we're currently on the, I think, second or third page.
Okay.
Hopefully one day on the first page, on the either through sponsored post or on like natural searching. But so yeah, if you want to talk to me about I Am Smart, talk about digital identity, how this might help you, your business, it's uh great to create a chat with if anyone who's interested. And also in the future, let's say you want to learn more about how the industry is shifting, the policies. I think over the next few months, we'll be doing a lot more industry speaking, industry sharing in the sense of like how this space is going to evolve, especially with the GBA markets right now,
Mhm.
how the government and how regulation is shaping to make it easier to onboard customers, onboard businesses, both sides of the border.
Okay. Very good. Anything you would like to add here?
Not really. So, do you have any further questions or?
No, I think I got everything. We have almost like a 40 minutes of episode, so it's pretty good.
Oh wow, time flies.
Yeah, definitely. And the discussion was very engaging,
Yeah.
so I really enjoyed this moment with you.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me on. I'll be glad to come on again in the future if you have time.
Sure, definitely happy to do it.
Yep.
Thank you very much for coming today.
Yeah. Thank you very much.